Good to see you're all still here. Slight change of tack now, actually, because we're going to talk about, after the fun and games of all those photos of the wolf pack over the past year, we're going to turn our attention to something slightly more serious, but something that affects us all. In fact, it affects everybody, even if they don't ride bikes, and that's safety. That's safety on our roads. It's something that I think about every time I get on my bike, when I'm putting the lights on and getting frustrated with people who don't put lights on at night and don't wear helmets and the rest of it. But if cycling on our roads doesn't always feel safe for pros, and I'm sure we can think of some of the biggest pros who've been knocked off during training, some who've been killed, in fact, in their own countries in the past year. How does it feel for the rest of us? How does it feel for amateurs like us? There are plenty of people out there working very hard to help make cycling safer for everybody. And to tell us more about it and what's next and how we can all help with this, please put your hands together for Cycling UK's Duncan Dollimore and also former British national champion Adam Blythe.
Hello, mate.
Good to see you both. Good to see you, Duncan. It's frustrating, isn't it? Because this is something you and I have talked about on and off over the years, and we're still having to talk about it. It'd be so good, wouldn't it, to not have to talk about the safety of cycling as not being an issue, but it remains a big issue. It remains, I think, something at the back of everybody's mind when they get on their bike and head out the door. What is being done to improve things?
Well, it is frustrating, and it's really frustrating because some of it is really simple. We had a campaign earlier this year. The government launched a consultation on cycling and walking safety, and we sort of answered it back saying, cycle safety, make it simple. And we gave them some really simple solutions and answers to it. But it's hugely frustrating that some really simple things, like how we deal with close overtakes of people on bikes, it's taken a long time to get anybody to sit up and take notice and do anything about it.
Why is that?
I think there's a bit of victim blaming sometimes that takes place in the UK. It doesn't help with some of the media coverage. The times that I get invited to speak on the radio and somebody wants to put me up against somebody and they want to frame a debate where it's a cyclist versus motorist debate, I can guarantee that most of the adults in this room who obviously love cycling or they wouldn't be here, they're also drivers, or most of them are, but the debate ends up being framed as a cyclist and motorist debate, which doesn't help us to try and actually make progress with things.
Is it some elements of the mass media that are framing it that way, or, and this could be seen as controversial given that we all love cycling, that sometimes is there a proportion of cyclists who do want to make it polarised, who do want to make it us and them, that we're not helping ourselves enough?
I don't think there is a group that want to make that. I think there are people who get frustrated. So when you've been close past for the X number of times, people get a bit shirty about it. When I remember reading an article where Adam had an incident with a driver and he reported it, and it was Adam that's having to apologise to somebody in relation to the fact that he got cross with the particular driver or said something to them. So people get frustrated, but that's a natural response when, for a lot of people, it doesn't look as though enough's being done, which is why we've been really trying over the last year to give the government some simple solutions and engage people. And it's starting to work because we're getting tens of thousands of people supporting the campaigns we're doing. And the reality is the numbers matter. I had a conversation with Chris Boardman a year ago, and his point was if one person writes to their MP about something, it goes in the bin. When 10 people write, it starts to be something that they have to take account of, and the weight of the postbag matters. So that's something that's really important. And so we've got a campaign ongoing at the moment, closes on Monday. It's all about reviewing road traffic offences so that people don't just get their licence back when they've killed or maimed somebody on the roads, and there's some teeth to disqualifying people from using a vehicle if they're not safe to be on the road. And we've got 13,000 people have emailed their MP about that, and that matters because that's led to it being listed in Parliament for a debate in 2 weeks' time. So those numbers matter, which is why we keep asking people to support the stuff we do.
So many points you've made there to pick up on, but Adam, I want to talk to you about some of those close shaves. I guess the rest of us have this idea that pros are sort of more like superheroes. You know, you probably wear better lycra, better looking stuff, but you know, you're the best of the best. And when you're out training, you seem maybe more or less fallible than the rest of us. Is that the case?
I don't think so, no. I just think we do it every day, so I think the difference is that, you know, if someone goes out for a hobby and they do it 3 times a week, they're going to be aware of what's happening, but if you drive a car to work every day, you're going to get used to that. If you ride a bike every day, you'll be used to that. So I think for a pro cyclist, you get more used to how the road sort of works and the traffic works a little bit, and you become a lot more aware of things, but it doesn't stop drivers, you know, trying to cut you up and getting in a bit of trouble, sadly.
You're a dad now. You think differently about life. Have you had any episodes where you've been spooked and perhaps even questioned what you're doing? Because I speak thinking about Alex Dowsett. Alex had, in training a couple of months ago, a really shocking close pass that really shook him up and made him question the whole reason for staying and living in Essex where he does to train. You train and live in the UK too? Yeah,
I think the thing is with it is those close passes, you know, it's generally a big lorry or a car or something like that, and it's completely unexpected. I think that's when they're the worst. When you get in an argument with someone because they've deliberately tried to cut you up, it's not really a spooking, it's more of an anger thing. So, yeah, the thing is you can't really you can try to do something about it, but the problem is you're still always going to get these guys on the road which don't care about cyclists. They just think they're out on a jolly, but they forget that some people are actually, like me, doing a job, and it's my livelihood. And, you know, like I always said to someone, if they want to know what it's like to be passed by really close, it's go and stand next to a train line, stand on that yellow line, and let a Virgin train come past you at 70 miles an hour, because that is technically what it's like. And, you know, nine people out of 10 would say, no, we're not doing that.
And Duncan, you're doing more to illustrate this for the uninitiated. Before we get on to that, who is uninitiated here? Who rides a bike? Hands up in the air. Who's had a close pass? Surprise! What a surprise. We've all experienced it, me too. Probably experienced it on a fortnightly basis, I would say, riding my bike around London. Some of it you just think, you know, there but for the grace of God go I. And sometimes you do lose your rag and catch up with people, because it's easy in London, and say a few words through the passenger window, without trying to swear, of course. What in terms of educating people, where's the focus for you? Is it educating cyclists to behave in a smart manner when that kind of thing happens, or is it really educating those people in their medal boxes who have no idea what they're doing?
It's educating people who are in vehicles, and there's a really key thing here. There are people who overtake too close because they're just being deliberately awkward and difficult. But the vast majority of people haven't thought about it. I came into this sort of frame of mind speaking to people I know that don't cycle, my partner, my daughter, and you suddenly realize that when we say it's common sense that you should overtake a cyclist leaving X amount of space or sufficient space, it's only common sense to us because we've experienced, perhaps we've got a video showing a compilation of close passes, so if we can play that in the background, we've experienced all this sort of thing. Some of these are...
they literally haven't moved at all there.
So you'll see shortly somebody with somebody's legs cycling. That's my colleague Nick, who's at the back of the audience, and he took some of these just on his commute to and from the office in Guildford.
Yeah.
And this didn't take long to create these. This was his just normal ride.
Yeah.
And
there's no, I mean, God, I don't know, it makes my blood boil. There's no room there, and some police forces are doing this kind of thing themselves. I think it was West Midlands Police.
Well, West Midlands started a fantastic operation about 2 years ago, and we went along to the launch of it. And for those that don't know how the West Midlands Police operation works, in very simple terms, they had 2 officers on bikes, cameraed up, riding along a stretch of road, which was sort of a bit of a road out the city centre.
Yeah.
Car comes past too close, officer mics in, radios into his colleague, and they pull over the driver, take them to a car park, and they've got a big mat, which is sort of 4 meters by 5 meters, and they've got a distance set out on it, and it's a visual aid, and basically they're either prosecuted, or in 90-odd% of cases, the driver gets a 15-minute educational chat with the officer about what will happen, why this is important for cyclists, demonstrating the width of the car door, talking it through. And we thought that was so fantastic that we wanted other forces to do it. So last year we did a Kickstarter fundraising campaign, and we raised the money to get mats out to every police force in the country. Some of them have taken them and aren't doing a fat lot with them, but about half the police forces in the country are now at least doing some close pass enforcement. What all those officers tell us is that most people, they stop, most people, their attitude is, I just hadn't thought of that before. It hadn't occurred to me. I haven't ridden a bike for 20 years. It wasn't something that was done maliciously. They just didn't think about it. And so what we've wanted to do is to try and find a way to enable the driver to change places with the cyclist. So the next stage of that campaign that we launched, we've just done this. We've created a virtual reality film. And the idea is that when drivers are pulled over by the police force, when they're for a close pass, that the driver can be given the headset while they're on the mat, and they can see from the driver's perspective, the cyclist's perspective, what this is like. I can't play this in 3D in here, but we've got a copy of the film in 2D, which will just run in the background.
So this is a driver who's done a close pass. They're taken out of the car. They put on the mat, and this VR headset's on.
Yeah.
So the cyclist can nick their car. They'll never be able to drive it again.
Yeah. But the idea of that is so that they get to see it. We had this at the Birmingham Cycle Show, and we had the masks there, and every single person that tried the headset, they saw and witnessed this in 3D. You're not seeing it in 3D now. It was a real stunning moment for them. And the police forces that are using this, so here we've got somebody overtaking the cyclist. They think that's fine from their perspective, but they then get to see it in a few moments' time in 3D from the perspective of the cyclist. And when you see that in 3D, it's a real game changer for people. And what we're trying to do is get this into driving schools, learn to drive materials, and we're trying to get the Department for Transport to use this in some of their road safety campaigns. I had a bizarre conversation with somebody from the Department for Transport 2 years ago. It was their think team. They phoned me up saying, what should we do on cycle safety? And I said, do something about close overtakes. And they said to me, well, we can't do something on close overtakes because we're driven by statistics, and there aren't any statistics that anybody's injured from a close overtake.
So it never happens.
So I said, well, that's the thing. It's not a close overtake if you actually hit.
Yeah.
It becomes something else. But we can't do it. There's no statistics on it. And it was this catch-22 conversation at the end of which I became like Adam was when he was dealing with the driver and impatient.
Very polite.
This does beg the question, Adam, I guess, when it does happen, and it does. It happens regularly. In fact, it happened to me, it's about a month ago. I was riding along Essex Road in Islington, for those of you from London. And I was riding out of the car door zone, because I've seen people ride into car doors, and I've heard about people getting killed riding into car doors, and I don't want it to happen to me. And the guy behind me happened to be a taxi driver, minicab. You could tell was really frustrated that he couldn't get by because I'm sitting in an area where I'm less likely to get killed. Got past these parked cars, he rides up alongside me, why in the middle of the effing road? And I sort of politely tried to explain to him this sort of theory of car dooring, and of course he didn't have time and he drove off. What I really wanted to do was tell him to do one.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you respond? Should you respond? Should you, and better people than me do respond very politely and try to take the time to explain and do never swear. Is this the way forward? Do you, when they don't know they're doing a close pass, do you give them a bit of a knock on the window, say, look how close I am to you? Is there any way of responding in the right way?
Yeah, I'd just say kill them with kindness. They're obviously in a massive rush, and if you confront them about it, if they stop in front of you, just be really overly polite to them, and they hate it. If someone's getting an argument with them, they're really angry. You just go, look, mate, it's all right. Just want you to know, you almost killed me, but it's fine.
None of us wants to kill someone today.
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly neither of us wants to die. I've touched upon it there. The car dooring thing is a big problem. Is this another thing where there are no statistics for it?
Oh, there are plenty of statistics on that, including 8 deaths in the past 4 years in relation to car dooring incidents, and 3,000 or more over 3,000 serious or minor injuries. The minor injuries tend to be underreported because people don't bother contacting the police when they've got a cut knee or a grazed arm. So we only really know about the serious ones and the fatalities. But it's a real issue. I've spent too much of my time in the last 2 years dealing with the family of Sam Bolton. Sam was a 26-year-old teacher, just got engaged on his birthday, riding along London Road in Leicester. Passenger in a taxi opened the door right in front of him. Taxi driver had parked on the no parking zone in front of the station because it was quicker than going to the designated parking space in the station. And poor Sam went straight under a van. And that was the end of a promising career as a graphic designer. And it's a real issue for those people. And it's something which is minimized by the way we deal with our road traffic laws. It's just dealt with as one of those things, something that couldn't be avoided. It can be avoided. People just need to look before they open the car door. We've been getting nowhere on campaigning over this until we started coming up with and using that phrase, the Dutch reach.
Who knows what the Dutch reach is? Okay. Because it's really important. And you're making headway with that, aren't you? So just explain what the Dutch reach is.
Well, when we mention the Dutch reach, I get it. It's a silly name. It's a silly name, but sometimes getting something with a bit of amusement, a bit of a catch to it, works when you're trying to get people's attention.
You hadn't heard of it, Adam, had you?
Yeah.
No,
You won't forget it. You won't forget it now. You won't forget it.
And the Dutch reach is very simple. You're sitting in your car, you're in the driver's seat, and you're taught or you're instilled from an early age to use your opposite hand when you open your car door. So if you open your car door with your left hand, you're already looking behind. And it's the same if you're in the rear seat as the passenger. If you open it with the other hand, you're looking behind before you open the door. And okay, we don't want to legislate for how people open the car door, but the thing is, it's just making somebody think about it. And we've been badgering the government to do to make some awareness of some of these simple things in the highway code. Finally, 3 weeks ago, they said, yes, we're going to look at changing the highway code rules about the distance you leave when you overtake a cyclist to make it clearer, the advice about looking before you open your car door, and some of the stuff that British Cycling through Chris Boardman were campaigning on in relation to the whole issue of priority, of who has right of way when they're turning left or going straight on.
As is the case in Belgium.
Yes.
You know, cyclists have right of way. I think, am I right in saying that if a cyclist gets hit by a car in Belgium, it's automatically assumed that it's the car driver's responsibility unless
well, that's
otherwise.
The presumed liability thing, which is slightly different. But in most of Europe, if you're turning left, you have to give priority to people going straight on. So if you imagine the situation, we don't have that here. We have 14 rules in the highway code which make that really complex. So imagine this situation. You're cycling along on a cycle lane where it's just really a piece of paint. The driver's come past you, he or she is wanting to turn into the garage, and they're really turning across you in a way that you have to stop. They're not sure whether they have right of way or you have. Whole of Europe, you'd have right of way on the bike, but it's unclear here. So you have those moments, whether you're walking on the pavement or whether you're cycling on that cycle lane, where you're on the brakes, you think, does he have right of way or do I? And just with one simple line in the highway code, we could change that.
Adam, was it simpler, better, safer, I guess, when you were living in Monaco, when you were training in the south of France?
No, Italians are not good at safety. I think it's anywhere in the world apart from, Holland and Belgium and these countries. I think anywhere else in the world you get the same abuse. It's just everyone's in a rush in a car, that's the problem. So you can't avoid it, it's always going to be there. But I think the more you're aware of it, and like you said a minute ago, you need to make drivers aware of the cyclist. I think the cyclists also need to be aware of the drivers, because I think a lot of the time you can go out on the road and there's guys riding 3 abreast and this stuff. And I think I spend a lot of time in taxis, and taxi drivers always complain about cyclists. And I think mainly it's because a lot of guys ride 3 abreast or something like that. So then if they do get to guys that are riding 2 abreast, they're automatically angry at them already because they were previously stuck behind some guys that are like all over the road and things. So I think, cyclists have to be aware of the cars as much as the cars have to be aware of the traffic. So I think if you think you're in a bike race in traffic, you're never going to get anywhere fast because it's just, you'll probably end up crashing or worse. So I think it's a double thing, as you need to be aware of the traffic as much as the traffic needs to be aware of you. And I think if that progresses, it'll be a lot safer for everyone, not just cyclists and drivers, really.
The thing is, though, a few bad drivers don't give all drivers a bad name. What is it that a few bad cyclists makes everybody who else doesn't cycle think that we're all baddies? What's the logic there? You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
I do, yeah.
We all get tarred with the same brush.
It's incredibly frustrating the way that part of the media narrative runs as well.
Yeah.
Because I have had so many interviews over the past year and a half about one particular case where a pedestrian died in a terrible collision with a cyclist.
The fixie rider.
Yeah, whenever I'm asked about that question, I'm tempted to say there were 448 pedestrians that died that year. Can you name one other than that case? And nobody ever can, because that one case becomes the focus of the entire conversation. And so we have 99.4% of pedestrian deaths in this country involve a motor vehicle, but the media want to talk about the one that involved a cyclist and a pedestrian.
But look, putting my old news media hat on, it's an exceptional story. That's why. And he was on a fixie, and he was riding through Dalston, and happened to hit her and killed her pretty much outright, didn't he? I think she died.
She died a few days later. Yeah.
I beg your pardon. She died a few days later. But they're always going to latch on to that thing, and it's rank idiocy riding a fixie through London traffic without a front brake on.
It's absolutely stupid.
Yeah.
But when we have those sort of stories that aren't put in context,
yeah,
it leads people to think that the problem of irresponsible cyclists is bigger than it actually is. And it leads to one side of the story being presented, which is why it's really important that we've got to put some of these things in context. That's not to excuse irresponsible behaviour when somebody jumps on a bike. It's the complete opposite. But there's been an issue, certainly over the last 2 years, of just some of these things. It's been very difficult to get the context across, and that leads to the whole cyclist-motorist debate and confrontation, which isn't helpful for anything.
Is there something, Adam, that's, to the uninitiated, cycling does look a bit weird? It doesn't look normal. People who are dressed up in the fluoro jackets and the helmet, and I suppose also counterintuitively, they feel more protected than they actually are. I mean, there's been those studies, haven't there, where people, if they are on a town bike and not wearing a helmet, are given more room than those, I guess, weekend warriors like myself that are lycra'd up to the max and have a helmet and riding fast. To come back to your point, I suppose, could we help ourselves a little bit more? Boardman pushes this thinking.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one, isn't it? You can't go out without a helmet on.
No.
So, yeah, I don't know.
You can, but we probably shouldn't get into that debate now. I mean, it's your choice, obviously.
I don't know what you can really do about that. I think it just depends on more the driver and them giving you more room than what you look like on a bike. I go out with my son on a car seat and a bike seat behind me, and when he's there,
you get more room.
I get loads of room, yeah. But I guess you're traveling a lot slower. They can see a little seat on the back, so it's very different, as though you're riding along at, 15 miles an hour slower than the car is. And if I think it's like that, it's almost like if I'm on my bike with my son, I'm not in the way. I'm not going to be a problem to them. But if I'm riding a little bit faster and stop them getting past me, which stops them getting past the next thing, it can almost slow their journey down, which if I was on my bike with my son, I never would, because I'm going too slow. So I guess a lot of motorists see cyclists as, they're on a bike, they're trying to get to work quicker, but I'm in a car, I'm going to get there quicker, sort of thing. So I guess, there's nothing really you can do about it as such, apart from maybe, stick a fake bike seat on the back and ride to work.
It's not very aero, is it?
Exactly.
Although when you were wearing those white national champions shorts, you're much more of a target than you are these days. Duncan, what does the future hold? Do you think there could be a change in legislation? Do you think the next time, because I hate to say it, but it is an inevitability, the next time a driver does kill a cyclist, they might actually be given the sentence they deserve rather than something that seems far too light to the rest of us? Can you see these changes coming on? I
think I'm reluctant to say it definitely is going to happen, but there's a groundswell towards it. We've been recently campaigning with Road Peace, the Road Victims Charity, and Break, so extending this beyond cycling to other organisations to try and actually make sure that there is a workable road justice system, so that there is something that applies when people put others' lives at risk on the road. And we've got that debate coming up in Parliament in the next couple of weeks. We've got over 13,000 people who have emailed their MPs about it. There's questions going in every day to MPs about it. It matters to people. They care about it. So, yes, the tide is starting to turn on it, I think, but to be fair, we've been waiting a long time. So I'm not promising it's going to happen tomorrow, but I'm hopeful.
I'll tell you what might happen more quickly is self-driving cars and AI, and the only vehicles on the road powered by humans will be bicycles. That would be brilliant, wouldn't it?
If they can spot the cyclist,
yeah.
which is a big issue.
Yeah, I wish Google were on stage with us and Facebook and everyone else. It is a fascinating topic. It never goes away. Hopefully it will in our lifetimes, thanks to AI and all the rest of it. But thanks also for talking to us about it now. Adam Blythe and Duncan Dollimore. There will be a little breather now on the stage, but my good pal Orla Shenaway will be up here very shortly, and she has got some amazing guests for you to listen to this afternoon. Former national champ Mandy Jones will be here, Freddie Martins as well. Connor Dunn and Larry Warbass talking about their adventures, your old teammates, sort of current sort of old teammates. We've got, I don't know if they're related, but Roger de Vlaming and Kenny van Vlaming. And yeah, something's going on in Yorkshire next year. And you're going to be back on stage, Adam, aren't you, to talk about that?
Yep. Yeah. So everyone back in here, please. 3:30.
The course presentation. Could you be world champion this time next year?
Yeah.
Of course you can. Of course.
Why are you laughing?
White bib shorts at the ready.
Too right.
Get those back
exactly.
out. All right. Thank you very much indeed for this morning. Appreciate it.